Hello, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Shemaine Grasso, Travel Industry Solutions. I'm here with Miss Annie Sim from the Table Less Traveled. I'm excited today to feature our partner with them because this company offers some incredible tours and different, of course, a focus on culinary. And Annie, it's just so apparent when I read the information from your customers and the comments that they have, that they truly are experiencing something different in these destinations around the world and the cultures that you expose them to. I mean, I read things like life-changing experiences, how incredibly organized and personalized your company and your team have them going through the logistics. They don't have to think about hotels or the money or the tips or just issues that we encounter when we travel. And then on top of it, they feel so connected to these communities and they feel like they're traveling with lifelong friends and you and your team. But as I mentioned, experiencing these unique settings and within cultures and just things that they're not able to do on their own. I haven't even mentioned the incredible fresh, high quality food and the wine. My goodness. So Annie, I'll let you take it away. Share with our members, followers, subscribers, what the Table Less Traveled can do for them and their clients and how you partner with them.
Yes, thank you, Shemaine. Well, I appreciate the kind introduction. I'm of course biased, but I think our travelers are like family to us. They're people that we know well and friends. And people often say when they come home from trips, like, oh, I didn't feel like I was on a tour. I felt like I was traveling with my friends. And that's exactly the type of experience that we try to give people and really bring them in as a part of our community. I want to share with all the travel agents that are listening today that I'm here for two purposes. The first one is to share a little bit more about what we do so that if there's a good fit for one of their clients, they know that we exist and they can come to us and we can take care of them. And the other is really to help elevate culinary tourism and an understanding and answer any questions that come up around why is this an important way for us to be interacting in travel and interacting with communities in different places and opening the doors for conversation. So I always share with people, like I shared with you earlier, Shemaine, we want happy travelers. So whether that's with us, the Table Less Traveled, or whether it's somewhere else, like we're here to be a resource and to be able to help people and travel agents if they have questions. So anybody, I'll provide my contact information. Feel free to reach out if you have a question about culinary tourism or destinations or how to interweave that conversation with your clients as well. Uh,
Great.
so I think before I jump into what we do, maybe it's more important for me to share a little bit more about kind of how we see culinary tourism and this trend that's really emerging, if that's good with you.
Perfect.
Okay. I'm going to share my little presentation then about how to integrate food experiences into travel planning and especially travel advising. I really focus on, we are like a guide for our clients in terms of helping them determine not just what and where to go, but why are you going and how are you going to feel differently about your experience when you return. So this is something that's widely available publicly, but the reason that we're talking about culinary travel is because it is trending upwards and it's expected in 2030 to reach about $3.5 trillion in terms of market space. And there has been a consistent trend, as I'm sure most people have heard or seen, of people interested in culinary experiences when they're traveling, especially the younger generation, focusing on food experiences as a way to interact and learn about different communities and cultures. And of course, a lot of people travel and plan around what are great restaurants I should try and doing a lot of research in that space. And I know a lot of travel advisors focus on having up-to-date recommendations. And for me, what culinary travel means is a little bit more than just knowing how to recommend a specific restaurant, but also thinking broader around what are people's objectives and why are they traveling to specific destinations. And we have the opportunity as travel advisors to really look at How can we help support what somebody's end goal is? I often talk with folks who have an idea of what they want to do, but once I start asking them, okay, why do you want to go there? What is it that you want to walk away with? How do you want to feel? I often reflect and say, I don't know if that's exactly the right destination, whether it's a country or whether it's like a city within that country. And so I think developing some knowledge around, especially culinary tourism, what destinations have to offer and what's unique to that space will help travel advisors to be able to point their clients in the right direction in terms of what they're actually trying to achieve and get out of their experiences, rather than necessarily just, I want to go here. Okay, let me help you put together a hotel and transportation.
I like that, Annie, because you're really consulting with them based on what you're hearing and setting expectations better, because I hear you completely. I think many times travelers have something in their mind that they're going to experience, but based on your knowledge and or, of course, the many travel advisors and agents that are out there today that are experts, you help guide them. So that's valuable.
Yeah, and I think, this kind of takes a conversation in a slightly different direction, but it's relevant in terms of our process in case it's helpful to anybody else. One of the things that we really focus on is the intake process with somebody. Because when we have a new client or an existing client who's looking for a new destination or a new place to go, we like to have a really in-depth conversation with them and ask the why questions. One of the most valuable things that we found is when we do redirect clients and share with them, hey, based upon your goals, I know you have this image in mind of this place because you've heard about it from your friends or you've seen it on Instagram. But based upon everything you're saying, I don't know that this place is right for you. Have you considered these other destinations? Let me provide you some information as to why I think this would be a better fit and what some of the experiences are that you would be able to get from that. And one of the biggest pieces of feedback we get from people when they return is thank you so much for listening to what I was actually trying to do and helping me to even understand for myself, because I got so much more out of my travels than I would have otherwise. And that for us creates a ton of repeat travelers who are very loyal and come back. And even if they know that we don't specialize in a destination, ask us first for our opinion and our connections, which I think is a really important component to working with a travel advisor. And one of the things that I'll talk about later is that we really recognize the value in that with travel advisors and their trusted clients. And so we want to be a part of that ecosystem of helping a travel advisor and their travelers come back time and time again because they trust them and they know that they're a good resource. So to switch back a little bit to the cultural destinations, one of the things that I wanted to share is just a little bit about, these are two examples of how culinary plays into the destinations from a cultural standpoint. We often talk about Peru as a destination because of the agricultural history from the Incan times and before that had so much impact on how the food is a part of culture today and a part of the industry around culinary tourism, especially in some of Lima's best restaurants, which are making waves in media all across the world. And then you think about Italy, and we talk a lot about seasonal cuisine, but we also talk about regional cuisine. And so even from a high level, understanding the destinations that you specialize in and what makes those relevant from a food destination standpoint, I think is very important.
I do too. Excellent.
And then I want to talk about what experiences actually look like, because I think restaurants is something that stands out in people's minds as, oh, this is an obvious culinary experience. And it is. But I like to think of culinary experiences as this opportunity to have a conduit to bigger communication, more immersion. And so I think about it as, if we were creating a grading matrix, is it interactive and is it educational? And it doesn't necessarily need to be educational like we're sitting in a lecture in college. Educational, like, is there something that I'm going to take away from this? Even if it's packaged in this fun experience that's going to make me think about something differently or make me learn something differently. And the interactive component, I would say, one thing that we try to do with all of our tours is focus on being a participant and not just being an observer. The difference between food experiences is often that you can get your hands dirty, you can be a part of an experience rather than just looking at it from the outside. And we talk often about using your five senses. So many experiences in travel have to do with watching something or hearing something. But when you think about food experiences, there's so much opportunity to touch something and feel it, get your hands dirty, whether it's wine tasting or a vineyard tour, and you can actually touch the grapes, pluck them off the vine, taste them, use your different senses, taste, sight, feel. I think that that's an important component to why culinary tourism is really making a difference in how people experience different cultures.
Absolutely. Oh, Annie, I'm dreaming now. Keep going.
So this is just a couple of examples to kind of open people's minds. A couple that I want to point out and are maybe a little bit more outside the box is that we also think about artisan products that are food adjacent. And this is something we love to do because oftentimes, even though we lead food tours, some of our clients are like, oh my gosh, I'm so full. I've been eating for so long. And I think that that's true, but at the same time, there's ways to incorporate culinary without it being directly like, let's eat some more. Artisan experience is something that we love to do. We in Japan worked with a tea whisk maker that was like one of the only people that still understood and was taught as an expert how to do the process from beginning to end. And it was like handed down for 5 generations. So he's the 5th generation that is making these tea whisks, and he's been doing it since he was, I don't know, like 3 years old. And so I think that that component of something lends itself nicely to interacting with the culture and understanding more from a culinary perspective, but it's not purely just I'm eating. And then it's an opportunity to get your hands in. Again, we had that tea whisk maker, then have all of the travelers try making their own little tea whisk and understanding how intricate and detailed the process was and how challenging it was, which gave people this understanding of dedication to craft in Japan and how perfection of a craft is so important. So that's an example of something that may be a little bit more outside the box, but I think is still very related to the culinary tourism part of things.
It's so pertinent, Annie, because think about it. I am myself. We can, yes, remember maybe an experience in a restaurant, but the depth of the memory that I'm going to have because I've touched and learned and felt and tasted and understood that the reason or the recipe behind, yes, that's incredible.
Yeah, and I think those are the moments that people tend to draw back on the most because they tend to be the moments where you have an interaction with somebody who's guiding you and somebody who's teaching you and somebody who's sharing their story. And so when I talk to travelers, whether they're our travelers or anybody, has gone independently, that's usually what they share. They share the moments where, oh my gosh, I met this person who does this crazy thing or whose family owns this thing, or we ended up having drinks on their back patio. Like those are the memories that are foundational. And these are tools to be able to open those conversations because inevitably funny things happen where somebody makes, a total goof up on their tea whisk and they're like, oh my gosh, I don't know how I did this. And then the person they're guiding them is kind of like having a chuckle and showing them how to do it. And so those are like these little sparks of connection that I think create these momentous occasions that people draw back on. And it is transformational, I think, in a lot of ways of how people think about their own lives.
Agreed. It always comes back to how we were made to feel, Annie. I agree.
And so I think one challenge that we've had as a company and as individuals is sometimes figuring out who do we work with and how do we find these experiences because they're not always super mainstream. And I think that this part of the industry is really in its adolescence. And so it's constantly changing. And that's a challenge as well. So I've kind of highlighted a couple of different ways of possibilities for researching and firsthand experiences as a travel advisor, actually going to countries, having these experiences hands-on and seeking them out. and working with independent businesses, number three. Oftentimes we work with businesses that are not already working in the travel industry. And I know that that's incredibly challenging to source, but when we're traveling, we're intentionally looking for, is there a tea whisk maker who we can work with that would be open to having travelers come and learn more about their craft and their culture. And so I think, it takes more effort, but in the end, the result is our travelers have a much more in-depth experience that they come back to us again because they're like, wow, how did you find those people? I never would have had that experience without you. And the other is DMCs, which I think is an obvious one, but I would challenge to really try and think about what is a DMC or who is the DMC that is going to understand you and your clientele and is spending a lot of time and energy staying up on the changing environment and going back and checking experiences. We've worked with a number of DMCs, and I think in the experience space, the ones that have been the best for us are the ones that we have this mutual trust and understanding of who our clients are and at what point an experience becomes too saturated or not special enough or has a change from a QC standpoint that doesn't meet our standards and isn't going to be the right fit for our travelers. So it's not just any DMC who can pull an experience out of their back pocket, but who are the ones that are going to understand and then keep a dedication to checking because things are changing constantly in this space.
I bet.
And so now I want to change a little bit to share with travel advisors some of the things that we actually do so that if they are curious and it's a good fit for their travelers that they can reach out to us. So we offer small group experiences with 6 to 12 travelers, and our experiences are usually somewhere between 6 and 11 days. One of our team members is there hosting it in person. We take care of everything from the time that you arrive until the time that you depart, all of the transportation, hotels, experiences, even tips for guides if we work with them or restaurants, etc. And I think the thing that really sets us apart that we hear about from travel agents from a travel experience standpoint is that our relationships extend beyond the tourism industry. So although we do work with some DMCs, the majority of our special experiences are direct relationships with individual friends, independent businesses, who I said, those are the ones where we take the time to build relationships and have a network of people. And it gives our travelers this opportunity to have what we call like a very real slice of life that's different than, as much as we love the great travel guides that we work with, they are not necessarily the same conversations because they've had that same conversation 10 times that week. Whereas when we go into Gloria's home or Domenico and Maria, who are here with their family hosting some of our travelers in this picture, they don't work in the tourism industry. So it's like hosting a dinner party for them or a lunch party in this case on their back patio in Capri, where it's like people don't get the opportunity very often to get off the beaten path and get into somebody's home and really be behind the scenes and unlock the door to something that's going to be a more in-depth connection. So that's really where we specialize, is these bespoke experiences that we crafted with our friends to take people behind the scenes and feel like they're participating in the culture, not just observing it from the outside. Our destinations are there in terms of where we specialize and where we have that network of friends. And we offer only a number of trips per year in each destination. We like to keep them very exclusive and small because it lends itself to that intimate dinner party feel. And we don't want people to feel like, oh, this is mass produced, we're doing it every single week. Like, this is a special event for us, and it's a special event for our friends that are hosting.
I appreciate that so much, Annie. Feeling like you're, amongst friends versus amongst hundreds or thousands.
Yes.
Or getting off of a tour bus and walking through, there's absolutely a value to that for various destinations, but the immersion of this is incredible.
Thank you. And I think it's important to really identify as well, like, how does that translate for the relationship that we have with travel agents? And so to share a little bit more about the value of how we add with travel agents, it goes back to the foundation of community for me. And it's very important to me that our travel agents feel like they're a part of the experience in some way, even if they're not there in person, and that their traveler recognizes, wow, this was Shemaine's recommendation, and this has been fantastic. And so what we do is we put Shemaine's name on everything that we do in conjunction with the traveler. So for example, we send out a lot of things in this excitement period beforehand to kind of get people excited for the trip. And we always sign off our name and the travel agent's name at the bottom of a handwritten card so that the traveler feels like, I know these people, I trust these people, and my travel agent was there being the recommendation point so that when they have a great experience, they come back to you. Because for us, it's great if they come back to, travel with us again, but we have a very few destinations that we support. And we recognize that travel advisors support a lot more destinations. And so we want those travelers to come back to you and be a part of your community. So we really craft all of the small gifts and the little touches and the personalized things that we do with our travelers in conjunction with our advisors.
That's important. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. And I think that that's part of, what kind of sets us apart in that those really small groups allow us to give personalized attention. So a great example would be, we have a Peru tour that's heading out here in a few days, and we have very few people on that tour. And so our host, who's one of my colleagues, said, hey, I noticed on their intake form that they're really into art. So although we are really focused on culinary, I already know an artist who does this, and I already know an artist who does that. And so I'm going to reach out to them and see if I can interweave some of their experiences into our tour. And so that's the level of kind of personalization and customization that we like to give our travelers so that their experience doesn't feel cookie cutter. And it's not. Every one of our trips, although we have an itinerary, is a little bit different from every other trip.
Yes.
So this is my contact information that anybody is welcome to contact me at Annie@thetablelesstraveled.com, whether it's about one of our tours, for whether it's a good fit for your client, or whether you have a question about culinary tourism or something that I can help you with. But yeah, I wanted to open it up to see if you have any questions or if there's anything else that I can help with.
That's so good, Annie. Thank you so much for this information. I know if any of our listeners have any questions, please, this is the time. Feel free, pipe in, or feel free to type also in the chat. I was thinking, Annie, as I'm listening to you, I wonder, throughout your selections and your planned trips every year, do you typically receive FIT travel requests, or sometimes it is groups? Is it mainly one or the other? And do you decide every year on your destinations and your trips that you're planning, sometimes based on demand?
Yes. So this is a great question. I would say, first and foremost, our focus is on our small group experiences. And I think that we do have some private trips that we handle. So especially if there's a small group or a family, for example, we can also curate something specific to them or customize specific to them. We can also say, hey, what we've done in the past, we've done full buyouts of our existing itinerary. So if a travel advisor has a group of like 10 friends, for example, that would like to do this exact itinerary, but around dates that work for them, we're happy to customize that as well. In terms of destinations, as you can imagine, it takes us a long time. We spend years developing relationships with people who aren't in the travel industry. That's kind of the critical one that takes us a lot of time and dedication to a destination. So for the most part, we operate within the destinations where we have those relationships, which has historically been Italy, Peru, Malaysia, Singapore, and Japan. And in 2025, we're launching our trips to Portugal, France, and the UK. And so we do look at new destinations occasionally. And part of our focus is on, with our existing small but mighty team, where do we have those relationships already, or where do we know that we can grow those relationships by spending some time there? So, for example, I'm going to spend 4 weeks in Portugal and 4 weeks in France this summer, and 4 weeks in the UK as well. Spending time meeting some of our local partners and developing and curating the itinerary that we'll be running in 2025. One more answer to your question was around how do we select those destinations. It's a combination of demand from our existing traveler base that we actually send out a survey. Do you want to travel with us next year? Where do you want to go? And then we give them a list of options based upon where we have those networks already baked in.
That's so good. I like that a lot. I can imagine, and I think about, yes, the time that you spend in your destinations, developing the rapport, understanding whether your thoughtful selection, I guess, of your trusted feet on the ground. Yes, in these destinations that are going to provide what you expect and what your customers are looking for. I love it. And Andy, even when I read some of the comments from your travelers, it sounded like you had even taken a couple and mixed them into a group that sounded like the dynamic was perfect because it was small still. Maybe it was 8 or 10 people, and they described how it was just you clearly in your intake process, like you've described to us today. You've done a wonderful job, you and your team, at bringing like-minded people together, which I think is so valuable in these types of trips and what you're creating for them.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up because I think, I actually didn't come from a background in the tourism industry. And I think that there are pros and cons to that. But one of the benefits, I think, is that I see things as more of how would I want them done? How would I want to travel? And so it opens my perception to how can I craft an experience that would be valuable to people, quite frankly, who value the same things that I do. And so the table less traveled was really born out of my personal travels and the opportunities that I had to learn family recipes from somebody in their home, or visit a tea farm and pick tea leaves with somebody and learn about the process. And what I realized was that for me, all of those experiences where I had shared that with somebody were so much more profound in my ability to make a memory and then keep that memory. And so that's one reason that our small groups are shared experiences, because I think it develops these friendships where you can then reflect back. And a lot of our travelers stay friends, travel with each other again after they meet on one of our experiences, even if it's not with us. So we've had travelers that have said, hey, we're going to Morocco together, with this other couple that we met on your trip. And we don't specialize in Morocco. And I'm like, that's amazing. What a cool thing to be able to help people make connections and friendships that last a lifetime from something that is so formative like travel.
Yes. Oh, so good. And the way that you cover everything, and we don't have to make so many decisions, Annie, on your trips. This is valuable. Well, thank you again. Everyone can see here your contact information. Think about how you are trusted and intelligent agents here want to partner with the Table Less Traveled. Such an incredible opportunity for your customers. And I believe you're creating an annuity for yourself when you're sending travelers with the Table Less Traveled because of the high level of review and satisfaction from your trip. So really great, Annie. Thank you so much. Thank you to those who have joined us today. This will be posted on our YouTube channel for later, but I appreciate everyone with us here today. Oh, Jackie's asking a question about commission.
Yes.
Yes.
So I saw that question and we did have it in a slide, but I didn't touch on it too much. So our commission varies. It's a dynamic commission structure because our groups are so small. It depends on how full the trip is and how close we are into a booking timeline, but they vary between 15 to 35% of the commissionable fare. because we include so many things that would typically be pass-through expenses for travelers, like tips and meals and beverages. So some of those things are not included in the commissionable fare. If you have any questions about what the current rates are for any existing trips, please reach out to me and I'm happy to send you that information.
Great. Great, Jackie. We'll share. Thank you, Annie. We'll share as well. Annie, or do you want to pop back up that last slide once more?
Sure,
So
no problem.
if
Yes,
anybody didn't get a
my
snap.
contact information is pretty easy in terms of email. It's just Annie@thetablelesstraveled.com.
Great. Thank you. I hope you got that okay, Miss Jackie. Thanks for joining us, everyone. And Annie, I wish you a great rest of the day. I look forward to working with you and your team more going forward.
Thank you so much, Shemaine. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.